What's up everyone? Today I want to talk about one of the best monk leveling builds in Path of Exile 2, and it's a Thunder Shock build. The reason this is so good is because it has amazing AoE with Thunder that can just destroy the entire screen in seconds, and it also has really good single target damage that can just put bosses down again in seconds. They won't even get some of their mechanics off because you'll just take them down so fast. On top of that, it's got really good movement speed, good evasion, good defenses, so you can easily clear the campaign with this. I'm going to show an early game version that you can play in like Act 1, Act 2, start of Act 3 maybe as well, and then a mid-game version from Act 3 all the way through and into crawl mode straight to the end of the campaign. So you'll be able to just blitz through the campaign really fast and hopefully have no problems with both clearing through all these big maps and then taking down the bosses. So let's get straight into this. Okay, so first I'm going to quickly explain how this Shock Thunder build works. So it's all based around power cores. So early on, we can get power cores from low health mobs. And then when you get Siphoning Strike, you can get power cores from enemies that are shocked. So when an enemy is shocked, you use Siphoning Strike and you take the shock and you generate a power core. Once we have power cores, we can then use our best abilities. So our abilities that deal the most damage deal more the more power cores we have. So we can use it to empower our staff. So you can see when the staff goes like double glowing on both ends, like these big lasers, that's an empowered staff from charged staff, and that means we have more range and more damage to our melee attacks and our ranged attacks. And then we also have Falling Thunder, and that deals more and deals in a bigger area the more power cores we use. So you're basically going to be going around, you're going to be generating as many power cores as you can and either dealing massive AoE or massive single target, depending on what you're up against. So this build can really do everything. We even have a strategy for just annihilating bosses. You drop the Tempest Bell, you charge the charged staff, and then you just go crazy. It's got loads of stun, loads of damage, shock, and you just watch the enemies do nothing while their health bar just melts. So yeah, this build is easily the one I would use for leveling. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with the early game version and then move on to the final version once you're a higher level and you've got all the gems unlocked. Okay, so here's the build guide I've made. I'll link it down below. So this is going to have everything you need. It's split into two variants. So if you go here, here's the early game version for Act 1 to 2. And then once you get into Act 3, you can click here, go into the mid game version. So I'll show you in the early game version, we have this. We have like a few basic gems that you'll have at the start of the game. And then we go into here and you have everything else. This is like the full version that I'm using now. And what you would do is as you're playing, once you get to like Act 3, you'll start using this one, move into it. And as you get the new abilities, like as you get Lingering Illusion, add it in. As you get to Gathering Storm and unlock that, add that in. So hopefully this helps. And I've also got like an early version of the passive tree and then a full later on version of the passive tree as well. So hopefully this helps build into it from the start rather than just giving you the end game version and saying, work it out. So yeah, let's start with the Act 1 to 2 starter version. So first let's talk about our main source of damage. Our main damage dealer will be Falling Thunder. This is where you do like a spin, you drop, and then lightning spreads out in a massive cone, and it will pretty much one-shot everything no matter where you are in the game. That throughout the campaign, this will be your one-shot AoE ability. As long as it's not like a yellow elite or a boss, this should one-shot the enemies. So we take first Perpetual Charge. This is supported skills have a 35% chance to not remove charges but still count as consuming them. So if you have like 3 power charges, the more power charges, the more damage. And I think the bigger the spread as well. So if you have like 3 power charges and you use this, there's a good chance it won't use any of them. So you can use it, turn around and use it again, giving you like tons and tons of damage. Then we go for Lightning Infusion. They gain 25% of damage as extra lightning damage, less cold and fire, doesn't use it anyway. So it's just extra lightning damage, which is really nice. Okay, then to get power charges, you want to use this move here, this Palm Attack. This is the first one we unlock. And this basically means when an enemy is low HP, an icon will appear above their head and we can dive to them and cull them. So you dive over to them and you take a power core. So it's kind of a clunky way to get power cores early on, but once you get a few levels and you get, into the later acts, you get much better ways to generate power cores. But this is the one we take at the start. And then you take Profusion. Support skills have a 50% chance to grant an additional charge. More power cores, more damage, level faster. Okay, now let's talk about our Spirit ability. So we use Herald of Thunder. If you're brand new to the game, Spirit is an ability that sits above your mana bar. It's a resource above your mana bar. You unlock it in the first couple of acts, and you have to have an amount available to lock in a Spirit ability. So we lock in Herald of Thunder, and the way this works is when we defeat a shocked enemy, we can trigger this thunder that blasts out around us. So this is a really good just extra damage. In this, we go Concentrated Effect for more AoE damage, and then we go for Elemental Focus for more elemental damage. This is just a passive damage increase that you just don't have to worry about. Then we go for Tempest Bell. Tempest Bell is your boss destroyer. Tempest Bell just rips bosses to pieces. After 4 hits, you can drop a Tempest Bell, and it just, as you hit it, you deal more damage, and it just, everything around you just melts. So if you've got like a pack of enemies and you have no power charges for Falling Thunder, you drop a bell on a boss, always drop a bell. Then we support it with Magnified Effect, 40% more area of effect. Just means that if something moves away from you, it still gets hit by the bell. And then we go for Tempest Flurry as soon as you unlock it. Tempest Flurry just gives you more melee range and electrifies your attacks. Okay, in this we go Martial Tempo, 25% more attack speed, and we go Conduction for 100% more chance to shock. This is really important because that helps trigger our Herald of Thunder, and once you get Siphoning Strikes, which you get fairly early, once you get Siphoning Strikes, you need shocked enemies to take power charges from them. So that helps with that. Yeah, that's how I would start. That'll take you all the way through the first 2 acts. No problem. You'll breeze through. Okay, now back in the game, let's talk about what this will be looking like once you get into the later part of the campaign. So once you get into, say, Act 3, I would start moving into this, moving towards your final gems and moving the support gems over to the final abilities. And I'll talk through it all. I will just say, if you're enjoying this kind of build, do consider subscribing. I make lots of builds and guides for, ARPGs, MMOs, that kind of thing. And I do stream over on Twitch if you want to come hang out. So let's start with first, Falling Thunder. This doesn't really change much. We'd go for Innovate for attacks gain damage as lightning damage for 3 seconds after beating a shocked enemy with support skills. The reason we put this in here is because as you get later in the game, it's much, much easier to shock enemies. So this will trigger a lot easier. Then we go for Lightning Infusion, 25% extra damage as lightning damage. Stormwave is our AoE. So I have that on my right click. Stormwave is your ranged big damage. On Stormwave, I go for Long Shot, so you deal more damage to enemies further away, because like I say, you use this when you're at range. And then Primal Armament, they deal 25% more elemental damage. So the good thing you can do is charge your staff, and then just start, if you're in a situation where you can't get into range, you can't get into close range because there's just too many clusters of mobs and it's too hard, and you don't have the power cores to take them down, you can just Stormwave them to generate charges, like slowly work the enemies down and deal good amounts of damage. So giving these a damage boost really helps. Then Siphoning Strike. This is our way to generate power cores. So once you get this, get it straight on. This is your main way to generate power charges. So as soon as an enemy is shocked, you just dive in and fill up on power charges. And we can shock like the whole pack of enemies at once. On that, I just have Profusion. I moved that over from the first ability we have, the Palm Attack. So this gives you 50% chance to get an additional charge. Massive. Okay, then we still use Tempest Bell. I only use this now for bosses. I think we have more than enough AoE clear. So I just use this for bosses now. And I go Magnified Effect, 40% more area of effect. And then Ruthless, 500% more stun build-up. When you're fighting a boss, as soon as you drop the bell, if you charge your staff, drop the bell, and then just start swinging, you'll just see that the boss just drops in seconds. He just goes out of action in seconds. So yeah, this just helps with just keeping the boss CC, just keeping him like unable to do any attacks. Okay, Herald of Thunder is still great. I go for Concentrate Effect for more area damage still, and then Elemental Focus for more elemental damage. So same as before. Tempest Flurry, I've got the 3rd node on here. Martial Tempo, Conduction, and then Coursing Current. Shocking hits from support skills have a 50% chance to also shock enemies in a radius. So as you're kind of meleeing, as you're in a group of mobs and you're meleeing, it just spreads the shock. So you kind of, what I would do is get into a fight. If it's not like yellows and if it's not too crazy, you get in, you start meleeing, you shock a big group, you do Siphoning Strike to take all that shock and turn it into power cores, and then you back off and you finish them. You use a big like Falling Thunder and finish them. Okay, Charge Staff. On this, this is your, the big lightning comes out of both sides. The staff empowers. Persistence for more skill duration. This isn't needed, but it's so nice. As we use power charges, we turn the power charge into a staff enhancement. So that's timed. So we only have this empowered staff for a certain amount of time. Having it longer means that, we don't have to get so many power charges. So then the excess power charges we get, we can use on Falling Thunder. That's a really nice thing to have. Then Perpetual Charge, 35% chance not to remove charges, but still counts as consuming them. So I moved that onto here. The reason I did that is, as you're fighting, if you have, say, 2 power charges, there is a chance you can turn the 2 power charges into a charged staff, and then they don't get used. So then you can use those 2 again, and then you have 4 charges on your charge staff. So you fully empower it from just 2 charges. Additionally, if you have, say, 4 charges, you can turn all 4 into a charge staff, still have 4 left, and then use a Falling Thunder. So I think it works a lot better on this once you get it. Gathering Storm you'll get in the later game. This is your big charge. So it's a wind up. You go back, which gets you out of attacks, and then it's like a timer. And if you hit the perfect timing, you just go straight through all the enemies, you shock them all, and you leave shock ground. This is one of my favorite attacks. It feels so nice to use, and it's the perfect thing to start the fight with, because it shocks enemies. It can actually defeat lots of just white enemies. So it's really good. Then Wind of Opportunity, 25% short of perfect timing window, but if you hit it, you get 50% more damage. So that's think of it like a critical hit. So there's he winds back, there's a second timer, and if you hit it, tons of damage. Okay, then we go for Lightning Exposure. Support skills inflict lightning exposure for 8 seconds on shocking an enemy. That works well because, like I say, it's an opener. So not only do we destroy anything that's low health, we also lightning expose everything else. So really, really good. And then finally, Lingering Illusion. I don't know if my screen's over Lingering Illusion. Maybe it is. There you go. Lingering Illusion creates a short-lived illusionary copy of yourself whenever you dodge roll. So when you roll, you leave a decoy, and then if the enemy hits the decoy, you get a power charge. This isn't something you'll be actively trying to do. You're not going to be trying to get power cores this way. However, this game's hard. So yeah, this isn't a way that you're going to rely on. You're not going to rely on this to get your power charges, but as you're just playing the game, you're just going to get extra power charges just from these decoys that will just be all over the screen. They don't last long, but they do get used up a lot. They do get, as enemies swing, they do get taken out, and you get these passive power charges, which is great. But yeah, that's all the abilities. If there's anything you change, I'm still changing this up. It's not end game ready. I'm not, I'm not doing maps with it. So if you have any good recommendations or anything that you would put in this, do let me know. Let other people know. It'd be a great help. But yeah, that's where I am. I haven't put too much time into changing it up massively because it's just deleting everything. I'm having no issues with any mobs, so it just feels really good. So I wanted to share it, but that's everything. Let's talk now about the passive tree. I'll kind of show where to go first and then where to work your way over to as you get further in. Okay, so passive tree. So starting down here at where we start as a monk, I've got Invoker, but let's talk about it. First, I would go straight through here to this node here, increased attack, cast, dex, and int. Over up at the top for extra lightning damage and 30% increased chance to shock. That's really important once you first get your Siphoning Strike, because that's how you're generating your power cores. Then I would come along here and go to here. This would be like my first step. Then I would come to here and get increased damage if you dealt a crit. And then I would go around here and get this increased evasion and increased max energy shield. And then down to here for increased movement speed, mana regen, dex, and int. That's like a good start because it gets through the breakpoints because we need dex and int to play this build because we're a monk and we kind of sit in between those two main stats. So it gets a good, you take a bit of int, you take a bit of dex, and it gives you that basic starting point where you kind of have a bit of everything. Then I would come up to here and I would get this cluster here. Increase mana regen, reduce mana cost of skills, and increase mana regen. The reason I would take that is because early on, when you're using, what's the ability called? Tempest Flurry. When you're using Tempest Flurry in the early acts, you are draining your mana. Late game, like right now, no problems. My mana doesn't move. So that's just really helpful early on. Then I'd come up to here and I would get this cluster here. 20% increased power charge duration, and then here, increase crit if you've used a power charge, and +1 to maximum power charges. That's just really good because it means that you can deal more damage, you can have more power charges as you go from pack to pack, and it just feels nicer. It feels nicer not having that timer just tick off so fast. Okay. Then I would come to here and I would get this, increased attack damage while on full life and increased attack damage while on low life. I'd come up to here and you kind of have a choice. I personally would start here. I would head up to this node here and I would get this cluster. Up to here, you get increased dex, increased crit hit, increased crit damage, and then over here, increased damage if you dealt a crit, and increased crit hit chance. Okay, then from here, we need to start getting some damage. So I would swing across here, pick up either, I would say go for int or dex, depending on what you're short on, based on your gear, based on the things you're trying to equip. You want a good balance of lots of dex, but still enough int to use all your abilities. As we come down into here, we have increased chance to shock, we have 40% increased chance of shock and increased attack and attack speed, and then we get more and more and more, and then increased crit hit chance against shocked enemies, and increased magnitude of shock you inflict with crit hits. This build does 3 things well: shock, crits, and lightning damage. So this gives us all of that. So this is a really good place. As you get here, you'll have your Siphoning Strike, and you'll have your Herald of Thunder, and you'll start to feel, as you drop your Falling Thunder and as you drop your big AoEs, everything gets one shot. So yeah, this is really good. Then I would come all the way up here, come across, you get a gem slot, and into here. This is your second like thunder cluster. I would take 25% chance on consuming a shock to reapply it, and then down into here, maximum lightning damage. This is just a good little cluster. I haven't gone into here yet, but I would eventually. Once you get more, passive points, I would go into here and fill that out. Next, as you come up, you've got this little cluster here again with more power charges. This is what I'm working on next to fill out crit damage, and then eventually +2 power charges. Can't stress enough, the more power charges, the more fun this build feels. Okay, then down into here, we have the quarterstaff, main area. This is huge. Then you get this increased attack speed, increased accuracy, crit damage, and 25 dex. This is incredible. Down again, you've got crit chance, and then finally, quarterstaff skills that consume power charges count as consuming an additional power charge. This is incredible. If you have 2, it acts if you've used 3. It's good for charging a weapon, it's good for dropping Ball of Thunder. Everything is great. I'd also say go over here, increased attack speed, and then up to here for increased defenses while wielding a staff. That's also really good to do. On the Ascension, I've got 2 points down here for extra lightning damage and shocked ground, and then I've got 2 points here for extra spirit. When I get my next 2 points, I'm going to go into here for the, this is a big one for survivability. Who knows where the 4th one's going to go? That's a long way away. But yeah, hopefully this helps. I think that's pretty much everything. I don't want to get into too much detail on try and make sure you hit your resistance caps, try and get this much crit, this much. Gear is hard. In the campaign, gear is hard to find. You can go through the entire campaign and still be on level 12 gloves. It's rough. It's rough. So don't stress it too much. If you find a good staff with, plus abilities on or plus lightning damage, things like that, chuck it on. Try and find the gear that has a mixture between intelligence and dexterity, because that gives us the best benefits. With the way Invoker works, try and go here. 1 spirit for every energy shield and every evasion rating to try and get a really good chest piece at all times. If you're going to use the thing to try and roll random items, try and roll for chest pieces and try and get yellow ones if you have a good weapon. Weapon first, then chest piece. Other than that, try not to stress. This isn't an end game mapping build. This will get you easily through the campaign without worrying about gear. But yeah, that's it. Like I say, if you like this, do consider subscribing. I try and keep these as detailed as possible, but if you have any questions, let me know. But that's it from me. Thank you for watching. I'm going to get back to playing. So thank you, take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.